Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hard Room. I am Travis Bruce, and today I'm doing a special interview. I have a poster and key artist who has worked on many of indie horror movies, coming from Scotland. We have Neil Fraser. Neil, how's it going, my friend?
Hi, Travis. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So, so Neil, I mean, you have worked on quite a few indie horror movies um, throughout since what, like 2020?
Yeah, started in 2020.
So to tell everyone, how did you get into making movie posters
um,
or art,
it's a
I should
quick.
say? Mhm.
Well, I've done sort of multiple genres, but it's a question I get asked a lot by sort of younger artists. It's like, how do you start? And I honestly like it's something I've wanted to do for years and years and years. But where do you start? Like, there's nowhere you can go to kind of get work like that. And I struggled and struggled and struggled, kind of just doing my own thing, putting it out. Obviously, you spend 30 hours doing something and you get 2 likes on Twitter and maybe a retweet if you're lucky, and it's kind of soul destroying. But when COVID hit and we all got locked down, um, instantly everybody became accessible. So film directors, film producers, actors, other artists, they were all locked down as well. So
Mhm.
um, I could I decided to go for a different approach because at the time I was not in a great place mentally. I mean, I struggled with the lockdowns, and my wife wasn't very well during the lockdown, and um, I was quite, I was in a bad way. So I had to try and do something to take my mind off it. So I started reaching out to various directors, producers, contacts, just throwing things out there and seeing if I could do stuff for them for nothing, which is something I never advise anybody to do. And people would always tell me, but never do anything for nothing. But at the time, I just had to do something. And I started speaking to a director called Giles Alderson, he did The Dare, which is a very, very good sort of um, lower to mid budget horror film. And I was talking to him, and he said, well, try reaching out. He gave me a list of British directors, because at the time I was just trying to get hold of British directors, and he passed me on the details of a guy called Jed Shepherd, who at the time had done some very, very short films, but he was in the middle of just about to launch um, a film called Host on Shudder. So I reached out to him. We had a little discussion, and I asked for some reference images because at the time there was no imagery available. He put me onto the producer, who sent me some stills to work from. So that would be on Friday. Over the weekend, I worked on some fan art. The film dropped on the Monday. I released the artwork on the Monday. By Wednesday, the film just went crazy viral, especially over here. I'm not sure how it's been a slow burner in America. I know it did come out there eventually, but over here it went crazy, and I just got dragged with it. So the cast were doing all these news interviews, and they were on all these magazines, and they kept showing my work, and I just, my followers went from 150 to 1500 in 2 days, and then I've
That's
just
a,
not stopped working. It's crazy.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was more, and obviously, the way to get into doing stuff like this is, it's not the amount of people that follow you or the amount of people you follow. It's the right people. So,
Mhm.
you could have, you could know 100 people, but if those 100 people are the ones that get you all the work, then it doesn't matter if you've got 30,000 followers. It's the right connection. So once I got speaking to Jed and Rob Savage, who went on to work for Blumhouse, he's just done a few films with Blumhouse. Their connections connected with me as well, and then you end up with uh, people like Josh Rubin, who did Werewolves Within, Scare Me. You then got Aaron B. Kuntz, who had done The Pale Door and the Scare Package. So I end up with all these connections and kind of doing things for them. And I mean, I love working on sort of lower budget indie films because I don't know, there's something about kind of, you feel like you're making a difference as well, because
Correct.
yeah, up and coming filmmakers, they don't have a huge budget. They often pay you almost as much as they spent on making the film to make an artwork.
Exactly.
So, but I can do something that gets them noticed, which gets them attention, and it's a really kind of nice kind of feeling to be involved with, and watching them go off to their festivals and see these awards they're getting for this and that. It's great. I love it.
It's amazing, and I love working with indie directors. I mean, because even like on my YouTube channel, I feel like I'm helping. I'm part of the team some kind of way.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's the case or not, but I feel.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of the videos I've watched you do a really good job at kind of the platforms that these sort of lower budget filmmakers get it's getting a bit better. You've got people like Dread Central, Fangoria are quite good at championing indie filmmakers, but it's difficult for them to get out there, and it's great seeing channels like yours that promote them. And I'm sure at some point there'll be a crossover where you might well have already interviewed somebody I've worked with. So I mean, I've worked on 70 odd films, so at some point there will be a crossover. So
I've interviewed filmmakers and people in the I've only been doing the interview portion for about 2.5 months, and I've interviewed hundreds of people since.
Yes, like I've been seeing it.
And like everyone always asks me, like, do you have a real job or something? Like, how do you have time to punch out? I was like, long nights.
Yeah, I mean, and I went full-time freelance as of August. So before that, since 2020, I'd been working a 9 to 5, and then people say 9 to 5 and 5 to 9. It's like, no, it's 5 till midnight, 5 till 1. It's not 5 till 9. Because I mean, for me especially, it's especially with artwork, it's not something I can just switch on and off. So if I'm not feeling it, it can be a real struggle. So you finish a hard day at work and you're like, oh, now I've got to go and do this other thing. So I'm really not in the mood. But
it's just, see, I want to get to that point because I still have a 9 to 5, but I start interviewing normally at 8 o'clock at night. That's my first interview, if I'm gonna have my first interview, and I interviews all the way up to like midnight. But I have to decompress and get myself into a certain, I've got an hour to get myself into a certain mind frame to do an interview, because there's been times where I'm rushing from point A to an interview, and to me, I don't know, I'm a worst critic, but it shows that I'm rushing, or I'm not comfortable, I'm not relaxed. And I don't think I'm doing any injustice to anybody by doing that. So definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely the same here. I mean, it's I would rather not send something to a client than send them something, because I have that sort of imposter syndrome anyway. And for me to send something that I'm not happy with, I would just be like, oh God, they're gonna oh, I've got no comeback. It's not like, well, I really tried. It's
yeah.
Sorry. So I mean, and also the thing I'm finding hardest, I think, about doing this full time now is, apart from trying to get money, is that kind of, because my parents were up there the other week, and my dad was like, well, what, it's, you wasted the whole morning, you haven't done any work yet. I was like, I can't just get up, have a cup of coffee and start painting. It just doesn't, it's not right. I mean, I tend to physically start work about lunchtime and then just work. I still do a 10-11 hour day. It's just I don't do it from 8:30 in the morning till 6. I'll do it from 12 midday till 11 o'clock at night. So and especially living in Scotland, I work best in the dark, and as it comes towards winter, it'll be getting dark about 3 o'clock. So yeah. I'll be getting a lot more work done. So but I'm really enjoying trying to make this work. I mean, I just turned 45 this year, so I'm kind of at that stage now, whereas if I can't make it work now, it's not going to happen, or it's not going to happen to the level that I want it to. So it's one big push. Let's see what we get to, and fingers crossed to kind of I take off a bit. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do all right. So you can always be better though.
You're in your grinding section. I call it, this is what I call my channel too, the grinding session. This is the beginning.
Yeah.
Like you have
it's like a cycle. So once you've got going, you have that pay cycle. So you do work, you get paid. That lasts you to the next. But at the minute, I'm in that first section where I'm working with nothing coming back. So
Yeah.
once I've got that, then you go into the cycle and you offset what I've got and what I can spend. And luckily I had some money put away, so I've got a time limit where I know that's when I need to panic. And if I have to, I'll go and do some other freelance work, or I'll go get a part-time job doing stuff. I'm determined to never have to do a full-time job again.
So I do have a question for you as an
Yes.
artist. All right, so let's say I am a indie filmmaker, and let's say my movie is Cocaine Dogs. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, like, how much information do you need from me about the movie in order for you to come up with visually a picture or a poster image in your head?
I mean, that kind of, I kind of have a sort of strange sort of approach to what I always have, which terrifies people I've worked for in full-time jobs, because I try not to overthink stuff. I wait and let a picture build, which can be very frustrating when I was working in a corporate company and they're like, come on, we need someone to just let me let me think on this. But to be honest, like I like to meet up with the directors or the screenwriter or everything, and have a chat, discuss kind of the information that they've got in their head, because sometimes it's difficult to kind of in an email just getting across exactly what they want. But you have a discussion with them and you throw a few ideas out, and to be honest, just a synopsis, I like to understand the tone of the film, if there's any color themes, because there's no point having your film tonally be kind of in a certain colorway and then you do a poster that's blue when the theme of the film's got a lot of purple or orange. Or so I try and get, and that's not information that people tend to sort of just hand out, which is why I like to have a conversation, because all of a sudden stuff will come out, or something will come out, or a key theme will come out, and you go, okay, brilliant, I'll do it on that. But I just have this kind of weird, I build a picture in my head as I'm sort of talking or reading something, and then once it's in there, it's like, got it, right, and then I can just go off and work. I don't over plan. I know I've got most of the artists I know do sketch after sketch after sketch, and I only do that if I am lost. If I'm really, really struggling for an idea, I will sit and sketch stuff out. But other than that, I like to just kind of be a bit more natural with my process.
Okay. Now, is there a difference between horror movies and non-horror movies? Is there a difference mindset you're in when it comes to a horror movie poster than, let's say, a sci-fi or action?
Yeah, I mean, because I also do book covers as well, so that's a whole and it took me a while to kind of getting something to look right on a book cover compared to a movie poster is very, very different. And again, genre wise, it's different, because there's certain kind of, I'm not the sort of the cleanest artist, so which is I think why I tend to lend myself to horror more, because you have that more kind of grungy kind of loose style, whereas for a rom-com, everything's got a certain kind of look and everything's neat and crisp and
clean,
beautiful, beautiful color. Whereas horror, you can use so many kind of opposing colorways and color schemes in a horror poster, that because you're almost trying to make it unsettling, so you can kind of use colors that you wouldn't dare put on a comedy poster because they just clash. Exactly. Whereas you can make it work on a horror poster. But yeah, I mean, I tend to be, when it's non-horror, I go a little bit more mainstream. I let the wheels come off when I do horror. I'll go down all these different routes, but it's a very different mindset, and I have to turn off the metal music and not watch horror films and watch something light and bubbly. But in the past life, I mean, one of my former jobs, I used to be a merchandise designer for Disney. Okay. So I used to have to do Disney princesses, and so, which I find quite funny that what I do in my career now and what I was doing before, all these, Peppa Pig and it's really it's kind of a strain. I still do that every now and again. I mean, today I did some work for an old boss of mine, and I was working on some Peppa Pig stuff today this morning. So you turn that off, and then I'm into a horror film. So it's a weird existence. But
now, have you ever, like, I see a Scream poster in the background?
Yes.
Now, is that yours?
Yes. Everything up here is mine.
Now, have you? I'm assuming you've seen, let's say, another movie's poster that came out, and you're like, "Oh, I could do that better," or "Let me see if I could do that better."
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem I always have, because especially being quite self-critical is if I see, because I know a lot of artists, so a lot of the posters you see that come out, or alternate versions of that poster, I know the person that's done it, so I almost, like, if they've done it, I'm like, damn it, I've got to wait. I can't, even if I'm working on something, I see, I don't want to step on their toes, so you can't.
Yeah.
But I try to not. I kind of refuse to do certain IPs unless I think I can do a new or better version of than what's out there, because there's there's a million Halloween posters, there's a million Jaws posters, and it's like, well, how do I do that better? And to be honest, that Scream poster there was kind of a again, it was when I was trying to work on composition, and it was kind of one of those. In fact, some of my best work has come from trying to figure out something for something else. So there's a whole series I did called the Desktop series, which are kind of looking down on a desk of various large IPs. So I did an Aliens one that had the pulse rifle and the screen from with the map of all the people on the planet in the cooler. And then I did a Jaws one, which is looking down at the dinner table when they're on the boat. And that all came about because I was trying to figure out lighting for another poster I was doing. So I just did it was almost just like a off the cuff kind of study of lighting. And I did this Aliens thing. Oh, actually, that's quite good. But so I ended up doing like 4 or 5, and yeah, I mean, that Screen poster is probably the most stolen piece of work I've ever seen. Like, I was stupid enough at the time, because I wasn't very savvy with social media, and I was like, oh no, if I'm going to post it online, I need to post my best version of it. So I posted this high res picture, and it's just been stolen completely. I see it everywhere. Like, the amount of takedown notices I have to do just for that one poster. I normally spend about two hours a week just issuing takedown notices from Etsy, Redbubble. It's ridiculous. And the stupid thing was, the one I posted online, I forgot to put my signature on it. So people don't even have to try and hide it. They just. But yeah, it's frustrating. But yeah, it got me a lot of attention doing that. And it's the thing you're always chasing. It's like when you're an up and coming sort of artist, is that the next thing you do could be the thing that gets you, and it's just like a drug. So it's like, this is it, this is the one. I'll do something. You just never know. It's like something you do off the cuff. I mean, I did something for Evil Dead Rise when it came out, and that was, I did it as a kind of to win an argument, because I was having an argument with somebody that there was this other artist that had done something. I was like, there's no kind of tact in it. It's just kind of thrown together. It just takes two objects, blends them together. And he said, well, why don't you do that? I was like, right. So 2 hours, and it got picked up by the director. It got picked up by the studio. They were, oh my God. See, I told you. It's like a formula. If you're, but something like that, it's something you kind of just do really quick and go crazy, and then something you spend 100 hours doing, nobody cares. So it's hard. It's a really strange sort of existence. Like, you just never know.
Now, I don't know if you can answer this question or not, but just wink yes if it's true. All right. So I grew up in the VHS era where
Yeah.
the video stores and the VHS, and you got to see a lot of low budget horror movies.
Hmm.
And I subconsciously realized the better the artwork is on the cover, the crappier the movie is. And I've even noticed that I've even had a couple filmmakers, horror filmmakers say, watch out for the indie horror movies that have the amazing looking covers because they draw you in and then you don't have you noticed that?
Well, I mean, my whole way of wanting to do this was because of Blockbuster Video back in the 80s. Because when we used to go on a Friday night, parents would take me down there, and I'd go past all the comedy, past all the family films, past all the sci-fi films, go straight to the horror section. They wouldn't let me have any of them, but I was just fascinated by these covers that
Covers were
had,
amazing.
yeah, and they also had nothing to do with the film. They were
Nothing.
completely standalone works of art that were like, I want to see that. I mean, you look at the VHS cover for House.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's almost nothing to do with it, but it's like I just love that artwork. And yeah, I mean, I've been suckered in so many times. But
because back in the day we used to pick movies, we didn't read the back, we picked them by the cover.
Yeah,
literally, we didn't see no trailers or anything. We picked them by the cover. This cover looks amazing.
but we still do that though, because when you go onto Netflix and Amazon, still happens. So which is why I'm so kind of thrilled that, yes, I know we lost VHS and physical media, but I can still do and affect people the same way I got affected in 1984 by people scrolling through VOD. So
that was cool. It's a vampire fighting a zombie. This looks great. And you click on it, and it's nothing about a vampire fighting a zombie.
No, I mean, again, this is why I try to at least tonally try and match the film. I mean, not that I say if the film's low budget, I'll do a low budget version, but I like to think that there's a correlation between the artwork I do for it and the film. I mean, obviously, I will try everything to make it look as good as it can be, but I rarely get that kind of, well, that poster had nothing to do with that film. I kind of, I'm quite.
But like that poster looked amazing, but the movie I just watched.
But the thing is, I adore low budget and B movies anyway. So I don't think there's any such thing as a bad horror movie. All horror movies are good horror movies. I'm just glad they get made. To be honest,
Yes.
I'm thankful that they're still. Yeah, and I mean, they're actually starting to become. You look at this year and the last 2 years, the amount of sort of more mainstream horror films are appearing in cinemas again, and it's great. There was, this year I think we went to see 4 horror films 4 weeks in a row. Me and my wife it's amazing.
It's having a resurgence.
Yeah, I mean, long may it continue. I mean, the more that people are turning their backs on Disney remakes and kind of superhero films, that horror's coming through again, because it's now being seen as kind of more. I mean, look at *Malignant* with James Wan. I mean, it had a throwback to that classic horror, but it was so unique. I wish it had come out this year and not 2 years ago, because I think it would have done much, much, much better this year than it did 2 years ago.
But this is that I'm worried about when it comes to horror. So, and this is something that happened with Marvel. They were milking the cow. It was just they were throwing it down our throats constantly, right? And then the projects they were putting them out so fast that the quality took a dip. And that's something in the 80s and early 90s they were doing horror movies. It was another one. There was one come out every single week, and the quality suffered for that. And I'm just worried that that's going to happen again, because every genre has its up and down. And right now horror it has its up. I mean, just last year, I mean, X was great, Pearl was great, Barbarian, Smile. I mean, there were so many great horror movies that I didn't even wasn't even on my radar, but they came out even this year. Scream 6, Evil Dead Rise. Um, I just hope that I see it right now with Nun 2. Everybody's telling me that's awful. And I just hope the new Exorcist doesn't continue that downward slide of bad horror movies that are coming out, franchises that, and they're coming off of popular franchises from the past, trying to, like, I think the Conjuring series needs to take a break. I feel like they milked that cow well enough. I think they need to take a break from it. And because I put Saw into that same category too. They were pumping out a movie every single year, and like that's when the quality drops.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm curious about the new Saw film because they have kind of taken a break. They kind of did that soft reboot with the last Saw film, but Spiral. But yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, the trouble you get is the ones that do we are getting horror at the cinema, but it seems to be those same 5 IPs over and over again, which I think there's probably a lot of younger people that just think that's what horror is just Conjuring films, and it's like that. I mean, which is why it's fantastic when low budget films like Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey come through, and all of a sudden, I know people, it was mixed reviews, but because it had such a big impact, it's great because it opens doors for people to take chances on other lower budget and indie films. I mean,
even Terrifier. I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of the first one, but I enjoyed the second one. But like to see them come out a low budget, and the second one only came out in limited release, and I saw, and it made millions of dollars. So it's great to see.
Well, the good thing. I mean, there's an appetite for it, which is great because it hopefully will green light a lot more of that type of thing than just your standard kind of cookie cutter film.
Yeah.
So I mean, I know that there's a sequel being made at the minute for Winnie the Pooh. So how that is, we don't know. I think they've already greenlit Terrifier 3. I think has already been greenlit. So I mean, I work with a lot of people that are pushing for the next sort of big IP. So I know that there's great films out there. I've seen some fantastic filmmakers, and some of the stuff I get to see. I work on a lot of pitch decks as well. So which is when filmmakers, before they've made anything, they'll put a pack together to try and get deals with studios. So I've worked on a lot of those behind the scenes. So the stuff I've worked on that will never get released, nobody will ever see the light of day, and it's some of my favorite artwork. I'm not allowed to talk about it, and it's kind of like, it's frustrating because I've worked on some quite big things that I'm not allowed to put in my portfolio, I'm not allowed to talk about. It's I mean, it's great. I mean, because I get to see things that a lot of other people don't know that could be coming up, but you always kind of sort of hope that, okay, well, one of these will get through, and because I did them a favor and I helped them out, they'll bring me on, which I'm still hoping will happen. So
awesome. All right, so listen, this is a horror channel, as you know, so I'm gonna ask you 2 questions, horror questions. You ready?
Go for it.
All right, first one: what is your favorite horror franchise?
Oh, it kind of depends on the day of the week, to be honest. Personally, because the first ever horror film that I saw was Halloween 3, and I absolutely adore Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. It's one of my. I know that you get a lot of these. It's now cool to retrospectively say you like it. It's like, no, I liked it when I first saw it on TV back in my grandma's house, back in like '86 or something. But I mean, I would probably. The thing that really got me going on horror was the It TV miniseries.
Okay.
So I mean, I love clowns. So I've got well, I hate clowns, but I love horror clowns. If you see what I mean. So yeah, I can't beat a good scary clown. But I'd have to say, if you're going for an actual franchise, I would probably have to say Halloween.
Halloween. Okay. Now, did you like the remake of it? Or no?
What Rob's yes. I mean, it as a standalone thing, it was great. It was just, I think it was, people compared it too much with the old one. It certainly has its place, and I quite enjoyed the fact that they went kind of really gory with a lot of the stuff in there, which obviously they didn't really do in the 90s. But I'm still very much an old school It fan.
Okay. I actually enjoyed the remake. I enjoyed part one, but part two I was like kind of a letdown.
Well, to be honest, you can kind of say the same thing about the 90s one. I mean, I much preferred I was so surprised that the kids outacted the adults in that 1991, and I think the same thing happened in the later one. The kids were so good that they were much more. I don't know, they were much more relatable. I think it's because they were much more relatable as kids than they were when they're adults. Because this kind of group of friends that are, one's a lawyer, one's a novelist, one's a comedian. That's not a relatable group of friends.
No.
Whereas we've all had that Losers Club experience with our groups. So I think that's where the connection comes from. I think.
I agree. All right, second question: which horror franchise, would you wish they would stop making?
Stop making.
And it doesn't have to be because it's bad. Like, it could be because it's good and you don't want it to get bad.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Honestly, I think, I don't know. I think I kind of enjoy the later stuff, but Chucky and Child's Play stuff. I mean, I really enjoyed the remake when Mark Hamill voiced and I really quite like the sci-fi series. But it's just like, I'm just worried it's gonna get so, And at one point we had that film coming out at the same time as the TV series, both different Chuckies. And it's kind of, we're really starting to spread it a bit thin now. I think we need to just back off on that. As much as Don Mancini is amazing, and I love Chucky, and I love the series. In fact, I did do some work for Sci-Fi for the Chucky series. So
nice.
It's kind of, I think that one, because I've actually done something for them.
Okay.
until I don't want any of them to go until I've worked on them. I can't let them go without having something in my portfolio for them. So
yeah, see, I haven't watched the Chucky series, but I heard that the season 2 was a letdown.
I am quite caught up yet, but it's always the way though. It's the difficult sort of second series. It's you've got to. You can't. The thing is, if you keep it the same, people will just say it's just more of the same. If you try and change it, people will say, "Well, you've changed it."
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the Prometheus and from the Alien franchise, and what was the second one in the series? Yeah, Prometheus, and then you had Covenant. That was it.
Yeah.
So you had Prometheus came out, and Ridley Scott had his vision, right? And he kind of, this is what I want to do. So I have to set the story up and then roll it through the other two films. He got such a kickback from Prometheus that it made him change his vision into Covenant, and then people were going, well, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't, like, it's like, well, yeah, this is why you should let a filmmaker see his vision through before you start, dabbling and demanding that they change this and this and this, and then, oh, it's a mess. It's like, well, yeah. It's like,
yeah.
I mean, the same thing goes with some of the art. Sometimes when I work on things, you get so much input and kind of people, oh, we should have this, we should have this, we should have this. The whole thing just becomes a mess, and then it's like, well, I don't think you did a very good job because it's a mess.
Yes.
If you'd let me do what we discussed and it had and the vision I had for it, it would be fine. But you've just got all these kind of, well, we need to get this in, we need to get this in. Actually, can you get some green in there, or can you get, it's like, green, like, you're going to completely offset everything that I've spent 20 hours structuring and making sure it's all color corrected, and then you want to put some green in there. And it's I mean, I get it, it's your baby, so ultimately, at the end of the day, I'll say my bit, but if that's what, as a director or producer, you want, I have to do it because you're paying me to do your thing. So, I'll do it under duress, but
Well, Neil, where can everyone find you, my friend?
Well, you can find me on Twitter or X, I think, under Neil Fraser 78. You can find me on Instagram and Threads under Neil Fraser Graphics. Facebook, I'll be there under Neil Fraser Graphics as well. And I have my website, it's neilfrasergraphics.com. So hit me up. I hope to work with many of the people that you've had on the show, because I'm always available, and I love working in the genre, and I love working with indie filmmakers, and especially at the minute, there's no big films getting made, which is great. It's also great for indie because
amazing for indie.
Yeah, I can see that there's going to be a real push for. It's going to really raise the bar, I think, for indie films, because actors and people that aren't working on those films are going to start pulling resources into indie films, and I think we're going to have some. The next year or so is going to have some amazing indie films come through.
I agree. Well, listen, to all of my indie film maker friends, followers, please shoot out to my man Neil. Now, I must warn you, he's not going to make any posters that have nothing to do with your movie. Okay, he said he's not putting up with that shit. Okay, so he said call someone else for that. But
if you hold the purse strings, I'll do it. Don't worry. I'm not that precious.
Please check him out. Neil, it's been an absolute pleasure, my friend.
Thank you, Travis. It's been an honor to come on, and like I say, I love your show, and I look forward to seeing all the interviews you got coming up. For the way you're a busy man, so
I appreciate it. Yes, it's a busy season right now. It's Halloween, so everybody want to promote everything, which is great for me. I'm loving it.
Sure, yeah. Best of luck to it, and I'll be tuning in. So.
Thank you, my friend. And yes, if you need to promote anything, please come back on in the future. I would love to have you back on, or just to talk about horror.
Yep, I'll be on it anytime. I will pop on.
I appreciate it. Well, everyone, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.